Hello everyone, welcome to another Dead by Daylight's Lessons video. I'm going to be going over a very interesting game I had, where I saw we were up against a Demogorgon, but they had very interesting add-ons. Specifically, they had their two iridescent add-ons, which I will cover quickly. So, the two iridescent add-ons he had was Lepro's Lichen, which reveals the aura of all survivors while traversing the Upside Down, and for 3 seconds after emerging from a portal. Pretty much this makes it so when they use the portals, they see everyone's aura while they're inside the portal, and then 3 seconds more afterwards. The second one is Red Moss, which makes it so the Demogorgon emerges from portals silently, but in exchange it's a little bit more slower. But also it tremendously increases undetectable status effect duration after emerging from portals. So this killer was being very stealthy with their play. They definitely want to sneak up on survivors. And the add-ons that they have are actually pretty good. Lepro's Lichen pretty much gives them information on, hey, I'll give an example. So if we were to go back to this game, let's say there's a survivor over here, there's me over here, maybe a survivor all the way over there, and let's say we are in the middle of a game. If he were to use a portal going this way, he can see both this person and this person, and afterwards he can do pretty much a 360. So that way he can see everyone around the map. It's pretty much like a barbecue in Chile, but a little bit less requiring hooks and more just doing what Demogorgon does best, going through portals. The second one, the Red Moss, I'm not really a fan of Red Moss all too much, but I understand why some people would use this more. Especially if they're trying to sneak up on survivors, to try and trick them into getting a nice fast grab on someone, or just to get a little surprise off of them. But I think the biggest problem with the add-on is just that Demogorgon's loud. Like, he's breathing and noise that he makes are really, really loud and obnoxious. And we're going to see an example of that relatively soon. So, enough with the shenanigans of me talking about add-ons, let's get into the game. And this time I do have sound, because the sound didn't glitch. So we are good now. Okay, we start the game, and you may notice immediately I start walking. Okay, I'm going to point out a few things immediately. This video is mainly going to be talking about certain short loops, as well as exhaustion. So for those who are unaware, exhaustion is a status effect inflicted to survivors specifically. It normally pops up like around here. What exhaustion does is it makes it so certain perks cannot be activated. What are some of these perks? It could be something like Sprint Burst, or Dead Hard, or Lithe, those types of perks. Pretty much these are status effects that killers can apply when using certain abilities. For example, if I remember, Huntress has a add-on. I forget what it's called. I think it's Intoxicated. I forget the add-on's name, it's a green one. But pretty much what it makes it do is, when you throw a hatchet at a survivor, they're inflicted with the exhausted status effect for 5 seconds. Exhausted only goes down while you're walking. If you're running as a survivor, it pauses the timer. This wasn't the case way back when, and this is why so many killers complained about exhaustion perks being so broken at the time. Especially since perks like Sprint Burst didn't even have exhaustion back. Way back. Luckily I wasn't there during that time, but you get the gist. Now, the build I'm running is very focused around just exhaustion. I have adrenaline, I have sprint burst, quick and quiet just because I love it, and fixated to help out with sprint burst. But enough with the perks, I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. Let's get back into the game. So I'm busy walking, you see I'm walking a little bit faster, that's because of fixated. It's at tier 1 so I only get a 10% increased move speed. I'm just gonna rewind real quick, because the killer made a mistake immediately. Since they're playing Demogorgon, a lot of the killers have very unique swing effects when they do certain things. So for example, you can tell who a Legion is compared to a pig if they were to do like a slashing animation, even with like a ghost face. You can tell there are slight differences in the sound effects. Demogorgon is one of the most unique, because not only does Demogorgon make a swashing effect with his hand, but he also makes a scream, which we hear right about now. And because of that, we immediately know, okay, so because we heard that, Demogorgon could be around us, first of all, and second of all, we now know it's Demogorgon. I may call him Demo Puppy every now and again, but it's just because that's my nickname for him. I just like calling him Demo Puppy because it's funny. Okay, so here are some things we should know about Demogorgon. He has three main... Is it 2 or 3? Let's make it 2. He has 2 main focuses in his kit. The first one being he's Shred, and the second part being he's Portals. So we're going to cover the Shred first. What happens is that with Shred, after about less than a second, Demogorgon's head opens up, his hands do like a little mantis effect. Like, you see his hands move, you see his head open up. It shows that he's ready to do a lunge attack. And when he does a lunge attack, he goes in a very straight line. The distance he travels is relatively quickly. Or, it's relatively quickly, and it's relatively far too. So, let's say I am a survivor. I am right here. If I see that he's opening his head and he wants to lunge at me, what I can do is I can go this way while he's lunging so I can avoid the attack. I can go this way to avoid the attack. Or if I see that he's just far away, I can keep going straight forward just to get a bit more distance. But most of the time you want to try and dodge it. So you go left or right, just try and make your movements unpredictable too. One other thing you can do is that if you are right in front of a wall and you need to move somewhere, what you can do is you can fake going to one direction and then move instantly to another direction. So that way, Demogorgon thinks, oh, I see he's going this way, so I'm gonna lunge this way. But in actuality, you were going this way, so now he's tricked. There's not too much about Demogorgon shreds. The second thing about the shred is it breaks pallets. So if you were to drop a pallet like right here, Demogorgon can charge a pounce and then break it. A few killers can break pallets with their powers. For example, Hillbilly and Bubba can do it. Blight can do it in some situations. Some killers are able to break pallets relatively quickly with their power. Other killers can't break it with their power, so they have to just do a basic kick. Demogorgon is one of the few killers that can break pallets just by looking at it and using Shred. It's a little bit faster than a normal break animation, but he's still stunned trying to break it, so you still have some time to move away. It's not instant, so you have time. So one thing you can do is if you're running around a loop, so let's say we are in a short loop, there's a pallet right here. Let's say we drop it. So we drop it like so. Demogorgon can lunge for it and break it, but what if you don't feel comfortable? What if you're like, okay, I am busy running away from him. I see he's getting ready to lunge at me. So, pre-drop the pallet. It's very normal for you to do this. Like, it's normal for people to pre-drop pallets, especially against certain killers like Bubba and Demogorgon. In situations like this, it's fine to pre-drop pallets. It just makes it so they waste a bit of time with a cooldown. But what you want to do is, if you're right over here and Demogorgon is getting ready to lunge at you, you just have enough time to make it over here. So, if you feel unsafe, you can pre-drop the pallet. But if you feel like you have just enough space to get out of there, don't drop the pallet yet and just keep on moving. Demogorgon is one one of the most beloved killers for people to face, because there's very little that Demogorgon can do to feel unfair. Demogorgon is a very interesting killer because almost everything he does is telegraphed. You know when he's setting up a portal, you know when he's going through a portal, you know when he uses a shred, you know when he uses a lunge. You pretty much can tell anything about him. You can even tell what type of candy he likes. The second thing to talk about is portals. So Demogorgon can place a portal pretty much anywhere on the map, then Demogorgon can go right through it to teleport to another one, let's say one over here, and he appears. For about 3 seconds, he's undetectable, meaning you can't hear his heartbeat, you can't see his terror radius, but you can still hear Demogorgon. Demogorgon is very noisy with his sound effects, so even though he's silent with his terror radius and red stains, there are still ways that you can tell that Demogorgon is near you. The portals also make unique sounds, so you can tell where they are too. It's very similar to Demogorgons, which I do get tricked out by every now and again. And Demogorgon normally has 6 available to him. And if you destroy one of them, it refunds the cooldown for him. He can't reset portals, or he can't set more than 6 portals. If he tries to, he can't. Imagine like Trapper. Trapper has a set amount of traps on the map. He has a set amount of portals that he can place. If one of them is broken, it resets that one counter in his inventory. So sometimes you'll want to break the portal, sometimes you won't need to. So for example, most of the game I don't break portals because there's no real reason to. I can't find them, they're not in the way all too much. But if you find a portal that's too close to generator, and you want to work on that gen and it's relatively close to finishing, consider breaking the portal. By breaking the portal, although you tell the killer where it was broken, you are getting rid of his ability to teleport to you, meaning that you are removing some of his mobility. Demogorgon is relatively strong with a shred. The teleports people don't make use of all too often, but this Demogorgon used the teleport very efficiently this game, and very frequently. So, if you see that they're using portals frequently, you may want to consider breaking the portals every now and again, if they are in the way. But most of the time, you just have to worry about Demogorgon just lunging at you. So, enough with the discussion about Demogorgon, let's just get back to the video. So, you see I'm just walking, I don't know where Demogorgon is, and I hear his terror radius already. From the sound effects I hear, I can tell he's most likely downstairs. Now, here I can see a few things. I can see that the only way into this room is through this doorway, so I want to keep my camera focused over there. I want to make sure if Demogorgon comes through, I stop him by going to the pits right behind there. Then, I see that there's a pallet here, which has a long wall and a short wall. Midwich is full of short loops. And I'm going to say this immediately. Midwich is a cube. Like, there's this for the first floor, and then there's this for the second floor, pretty much. Like, there are a few classrooms, like, over here, maybe the bathroom over here. Like, there are a few classrooms sprinkled around, but most of the time, it's literally just running in circles the video game. Midwich is very bare bones with its structure. So, you're just running around in circles trying to make sure, hey, I don't want to get hit, so I'm just going to stay on the other side of the map pretty much. If the killer's on this side of the map, I'm gonna be over here. If he goes this way, I'm most likely gonna go this way. And there's nothing that the killer can really do. The second thing to mention about Midwich, there are multiple ways to get downstairs, but there's very little ways to get upstairs. So for example, with the upstairs level, we have like the stairway here, we have like a hole over here, a window here, a hole over here, maybe a hole near the bathroom areas, and obviously the pit that you see over there. Like, there are many ways to get downstairs in the Midwich map. But when it comes to getting upstairs, you have 2 to 3 options. One of them is blocked by breakable walls, and the other 2 options are on the other side of the map. from each other. So if I were to draw the layout of Midwich again, the stairway is over here, the stairway is over here. That's the only ways that you can really get upstairs, unless of course you use the bathroom, where the killer has to break the breakable wall, which is like over here and then over here on the other floor. There's very, very few ways that you can get upstairs on Midwich, and because of this, it can get really confusing where some generators are, because many of them are in the classrooms. And some classrooms feel just empty and pointless. For example, I remember there's one classroom in Midwich which is just nothing but desks. There's no pallets, there's only 2 doorways and maybe a window. And there's nothing in there except like desks blocking stuff. Like, the desks are like this. Like, it's just awkward. Like, it's just weird. Midwich has a lot of short loops. It has some obnoxious pallets, and you will see one of them later on. But besides Midwich, what else can we see? We have Ruin in the game, which is right over here, and we see the gen is sparking. You want to normally tap the gen, which is what I did, to see if Ruin is in play. If you see that Ruin is in play, then you have to realize, okay, I have to hold on to a gen, so that way I get a bit of progress, and if the killer comes near, I should let go. Alright, I'm gonna shut up for a little bit, and we just keep on watching some gameplay. Okay, now I'm going to point out the biggest mistake I made with that. Let's just rewind back. I hear that Demogorgon is getting closer, and I decide, okay, Demogorgon's getting closer, let's go to the pit and fall down. But then, for some random reason, I just decide, you know what, I don't feel like falling down, so instead I'm just gonna turn around. And that was really stupid of me. I will be honest there. So, I see Demogorgon has entered the room. Since I'm not jumping down into the pit, I have to rely on this pallet loop, which does not help. I go to this side, he goes through the pallets to get to the other side. I decide to sprint burst to the other way, so that way I could just try and run past him. But he was just fast enough to get to the other side to block me, which leads to me getting hit. I genuinely don't know how that hit me. Maybe I didn't see it, maybe it's just because I'm tired, but it was just awkward on how the hitboxes worked there. Regardless, I got hit, I get the burst and move speed from getting hit, as well as the sprint burst. Excuse me. And because of that, I am literally already halfway. I'm almost halfway to the other side of the map. He's still right over here, and I've already made so much distance. And the reason you're seeing all the scratch marks on the floor is because of Fixated. What Fixate is getting renamed next patch. I think it's called Self-Aware. Regardless, what Fixated does is you move 20% faster at max tier, and you see your own scratch marks. That's all that Fixated does. Many people use Fixated with Sprint Burst specifically, so they can traverse around the map a little bit more quickly, while conserving some time for the exhaustion meter to go down. Okay, so I'm just keeping my distance from Demogorgon, and it looks like he's lost me. So now I am working on a gen with Jane. We hear the terror radius for a little bit, but he used the portal to get away. Okay. Just real quick, if my mouse will work. So, first of all, we heard a unique sound effect to Demogorgon. That sound effect applies when he's going through a portal, meaning that he has lost interest in me and he's going somewhere else now. And the second thing, we saw Jane fast enter a locker. And then we see her fast exit a locker. There are 2 possible reasons for this. First of all, it could be that Jane is being a complete idiot and she just wants to throw the match by just making sound notifications and being noisy. Which is the least likely case because we haven't heard gens blowing up, but that could be because I was on the other side of the map. The second reason is that she has flashbang. And if you are to look at her hand, she has a little flashbang in hand. So now we know that Jane has a flashbang in the game. Which is just nice to know. Alright, I'm waiting for the exhaustion meter to go down and just pressuring through this gen. Okay. I'm going to rewind by 10 seconds real quick. So, one thing we noticed was that as soon as the gen was done, Demogorgon was literally right through this doorway. This tells us one very important thing. This killer has Tinkerer. Tinkerer makes it so when the generator is at 80% progress, like around here, the killer's terror radius and red bloodstain is hidden for 10 seconds. That is why, when I wanted Jane to heal me, I didn't hear Demogorgon's terror radius, I didn't see his red stain, until I saw his giant white body just walking through this doorway. The second thing is that I could have ran past the Jane to try and get her to body block, but I was too slow on the reaction along with Jane, so she couldn't tank a hit for me. Which leads to me getting downed, and thus leads to him getting the first hook. And we see that Jane is dropping the flashbang, but that was way too early. And we are hooked. Honestly, if you have any questions about the game, the Dead by Daylight lessons, if you want me to review some gameplay, leave in the comments below if you're interested in just wanting to know if you want me to review your gameplay to see if there's any way you could improve. I don't know everything to the game, but I do know a general amount of knowledge to help assist anyone if possible. But first things first, when I said this in the last Dead by Daylight lessons video, but when I'm playing killer, I generally like having 2 hooks while there are 5 gens in play. So what this means is that I generally like getting 2 people on the hook, and as long as a gen hasn't procced yet, I feel like I am doing very efficient work in the game. This is the biggest number that I generally like. I view it as the 2-5 rule that I follow. If you manage to get 2 hooks before a single gen procs, then you are in a very healthy position, because now you're in a situation where 2 people are close to second hook, and a gen hasn't procced yet, meaning that I am in the advantage. This killer is not in this situation, however. 1 generator is procced, and I'm the only one who's gone hooked. Meaning that, in the end, he's lost a bit of progress, but he still will be fine. There are still 4 generators left, he's gotten me on hook, and there are 3 other players that he can still find. Now, what do we know about this Demogorgon from just me interacting with him? We know that perk number 1 is Ruin, and perk number 2 is Tinker. Now, generally when you see Ruin Tinkerer, you will also see other perks like Undying and Pop. The reason why is this is a very popular build with a lot of killers lately. Especially with mobile killers, people love using this as extreme slowdown. So, examples of people using this is Blight. Blight is a very popular example of using this type of build. You run Ruin and Undying. When someone tries to break the Ruin, the Undying takes the hit, and you're able to save the Ruin. If the Ruin dies, then you still have Pop to slow down the game, and you have Tinker to help you try and get a grab, or just to help you get a hit somewhere, if the survivor isn't paying much attention. Now, with Demogorgon, we know he has Ruin, and he has Tinkerer, meaning that he has either these 2 perks, or maybe one of these perks, or he's only running Ruined Tinker and then 2 other random perks. We don't know perk number 3, and we don't know perk number 4. So, this is all we know about this Demogorgon. We see Jane is running this way, meaning that Jane has to be a bit more careful since Demogorgon is running that way too. Then there's just me playing around on the hook. I normally do this every now and again. A lot of people generally do this. Oh, and of course, my ever so favorite thing to do now is just... sad face. The depression is kicking in. We are so sad. We are the first one to be hooked once again. Oh well. Okay. What can we tell? No one is working on the gen except the Jane over here. Jane is the only one that's able to get to me because there are stairs over here, meaning that the other stairs are all the way over there. These two are running around doing absolutely nothing. It could be that Demogorgon is chasing one of these two. It could be that they're looking for generators. But these two need to find generators as soon as possible. Running around like this doing absolutely nothing is not going to help us, especially on Midwich, which is a very, very obnoxious map to play on. In this situation, the Jane has to let go of this gen and try and save the survivor that's hooked, because she's the only one that's nearby. And I feel like I need to talk about this real quick. There's a certain perk, or I want to make a video talking about universal perks. These are perks that belong to every single killer and survivor. They are normally called the Lost Archives, or the Lost Tapes, where it's just like a bunch of miscellaneous perks that exist that survivors and killers can get. Example of it being like Spine Chill, Resilience, you know, that bunch. There's a certain one called Kindred, and I feel like Kindred is one of the best universal perks in the game. When you are hooked, every survivor can see your aura, as well as the killer's aura if they're in a certain radius. I believe it's 12 meters. Maybe it's 18. I'm not too sure. Excuse me. But the reason why Kindred is so useful is if you are hooked, everyone has that information. But if someone else is hooked, you have that information. You can tell where every other survivor is, and you can tell where the killer is. This means that you have the power to decide, okay, I see one survivor going for the hook, so I will just keep working on the gen. Or, I see no one's going to save this poor guy, so I will go and save him. Or, as my personal favorite choice in lower ranks, I see that the killer is face camping, so I'm going to keep working on gens. Kindred is a very, very useful perk, and I recommend it to any newer player in Dead by Daylight. Now let's get back to the game. So Jane let go of the gen, and immediately she's going to get us off the hook. One other thing we can say is that we saw LOD get injured, who's over here, meaning that Demogorgon is on the lower floor, on the other side of the map. Meaning we now have a general location of where Demogorgon is. We see that Jane has BT, so it's useful to remember. And we ask for her to heal us up. Okay, we just saw Demogorgon pass by over there, so we now know his general location once again. He's now on the upstairs on the other side of the map. So we are using this information to get to the bottom floor and stay on this side. And we see that LOD has finally gone down, and we use our sprint burst here. The reason being is that we need to get pressure now. Two people are another person is already about to get on the hook. We only have one gen through. We should find another gen and start getting pressure. We see that this loop is still existent, and here is the example of Kindred. So LOD has Kindred. You can see in the bottom corner over here. We see that Demogorgon is over here, and we see he's going right for the stairs over here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use Fixate to walk for a little bit and hide in the corner here. The main reasoning is that Demogorgon, my thought process is he's going to walk through this way and we can sneak by. Because this wall is blocking his vision of us while we are sitting right in the corner over here. And if he does decide to walk this way, we can run into this room to get to this loop, which has a pallet. Which is another short loop. So we're just waiting here, seeing if he passes by. We don't see him pass by, so I'm thinking, is he waiting at the stairs, or is he going somewhere else? So I just walk by just a little bit to see, and I turn the camera, I see he went the other way. And he just used the portal. The problem with the portal is we have no idea where he's ending up. We don't know if he's teleporting over here, we don't know if he's teleporting all the way over there. We don't know if he's over here, we don't know if he's all the way over there, we don't even know if he's below us. Because I haven't seen any of his portals yet, but I do know that he has portals somewhere. And immediately Jen gets injured, and she is right over there. It looks like she's running this way, which is a very unfortunate situation since we are about to save the Elodie. Okay, we saved the Elodie, and immediately I realize we found the Hex Totem. This is Ruin. If it was Undying, if we ran past this area, we would have had the indicator right over here saying Hex Undying. That is not the case, meaning that if we go back to our handy little guide on what killers normally run, so Ruin, Undying, Pop, and Tinker, we can say that Ruin is in the game, Tinker is in the game, but Undying isn't, meaning he has a different third perk, and this perk could be in the game as the fourth, but we have no clue. Now, I can break this totem and we can get rid of Ruin, meaning that Tinker will no longer proc multiple times unless the killer kicks the gen. But now we have to be careful because this Elodie is injured, I don't have BT, and Jane is coming right this way with the killer. So I'm running just to tank some hits for Elodie just in case. And I see, okay, they're not there yet, so let me walk to this totem. And Demogorgon ends up kicking them down. So I start working on the totem because my thought process is, okay, he downed Jane all the way over here, he's probably gonna put her on a hook somewhere around there. No, in this case he puts her right on top of the hook that Jane, or Elodie was on. However, due to Fixated, I was able to avoid his vision. And we managed to sneak right past him. Okay, immediately we can see 3 people are injured. 3 people have been hooked once. And not a single gen has been popped yet, except for the one that me and Jane worked on. This is not good. This Demogorgon has relieved all the pressure that he has lost and has gained it all back. Now everyone is about to be on their second stage, which means that everyone is in deep trouble now. Especially since everyone else is injured, except me. This means that Demogorgon has 3 tasty options to chase after, and 1 which is a little bit harder to get, but he still has a chance to get it. So, and we just got another gen. This is good. This is really good. I'm thinking it was the Elodie who ran away to work on a different gen, which is really nice. I am not going to work on this totem to get rid of Ruin. And Jane was over here just for a second because she's like, oh, can you heal me, Meg? And she's like, oh, I see you're working on bones. Never mind. And we see immediately that Nancy got downed. This tells us something very important about Nancy. One of 2 things. 1, she's either not very good at looping, and because of this she could be a detriment to the team. Or 2, She was caught in a very open situation where she didn't have any loops. Regardless, though, she literally just kept Demogorgon in a chase for like 10 seconds, and that was it. It gave us a bit of time to get a save and possibly get a bit of time to break the bones too. But this is still extremely depressing. And we hear the Jane entering a locker again, most likely to get flashbang. And we teabag just to let the Jane know, hey, I can heal you now. Okay. We can hear Demogorgon's terror radius. So what, in this situation, since I'm healing a teammate who's injured, which is the Jane, who has been recently hooked, I don't know if she has Decisive Strike, so what we need to do is we need to block. Since Demogorgon can only come through this doorway, if he uses Shred, if he uses an M1, regardless, we need to be in the way of the Jane to tank a hit for her. We can't let her get hooked again. So we're just healing up the Jane, trying to get as much safety on her as possible. And we start working on the Jin, because I'm thinking, oh, maybe Demogorgon is on the bottom floor. Which is the case on many indoor maps, where it's like, oh, I can hear the terror radius right on top of me. No, he's just below you. It's just a flooring. So I'm just keeping my eyes open on the doorway, making sure if he appears. Oops, I just skipped a little bit too far. My mistake. But we're just keeping our eyes open on this doorway. We walk to the pit just in case. And then this happens, listen. Okay, Demogorgon just teleported again. And when Demogorgon teleports, I already stated, he gains the endurance, or he gains the... I'm trying to remember. I think it's... Undetected, that's the one I'm trying to remember. He gains the undetected status effect for 3 seconds, meaning he teleports somewhere around. We don't know where, but we now know he teleports somewhere. Meaning that we don't know anything. We don't know where he is, we don't know if he's on top of us, we don't know if he's on the other side of the map. So we have to keep our eyes peeled and our ears sharp. Now listen very carefully, this is the second part. Did you hear that? Let me rewind again just so you can hear again clearly. Remember when I said Demogorgon is a very noisy killer? The biggest problem with portals in Demogorgon is that although he gains the undetectable status effect, he's still noisy. You can still hear he's breathing, you can still hear his head shifting, the jaws, so you realize, hey, I can hear him, even though his terror radius and red stain is missing. So we now know he's right behind that wall, meaning we have to move like now. And this is the only safe option we have. This is the only escape hatch we have. Except that doorway, but Demogorgon is coming through that doorway. There's no way we're going to be able to do anything about that. So down the hole we go. Sadly, the Jane doesn't realize this. When she sees me going down, she's like, huh, I wonder why. And because of that, she gets hit. And we just heard that sound effect too. She drops down to try and run. And she gets downed immediately. This... Because of the time it took him to get this down, this tells me what his third perk is. We know that perk number 1 is Ruin. Perk number 2 is Tinkerer. And now we have perk number 3. Save the best for last. Save the best for last is probably one of my most favorite killer perks in the game when I'm playing killer. When you're playing against the save the best for last player, it's generally on a few certain killers. For example, it's on Pig, it's on Deathslinger, it's on Demogorgon, and there are obvious reasons for this. Demogorgon is the best, or not even the best, he's one of the best at using save the best for last efficiently. You see, save the best for last gives you a token, and every single token gives you a little bit of a faster blade wipe animation. This means that you can, let's say a blade wipe animation is like 2 seconds. So after hitting this chain, it takes the Demogorgon about 2 seconds to get his roar out of the way before he can start moving again and start swinging. Effectively, this is cut to, let's say, like 0.75 or even 1 second. This isn't the exact math, but pretty much, save the best for last is giving him the power to snowball like crazy. Now we know that Demogorgon, if he hits me with a basic attack, he's losing 2 stacks. He only gains 1 by hitting normal people, but the obsession, he loses 2. This tells us one important thing. Demogorgon is going to try his very, very best to hit me with his lunge. Or not even lunge, his shred attack. So that way he can conserve stacks. Many of the killers in Dead by Daylight who use save the best for last, like Pig and Deathslinger, try to save as many stacks as possible. For example, Pig uses her ambush attacks to get damage out and to save up stacks. Deathslinger will purposely stun himself against the obsession after shooting and reeling her in, and then shoot and then hit her. Although he still loses a few stacks, he's managed to conserve a few. M1 killers generally love save the best for last, but there are a few that don't make much use of it. For example, you don't see Huntress using save the best for last because most of her damage is from the hatchets, not from her M1. And Nurse hardly ever uses save the best for last because her basic attack with the blink isn't considered a basic attack all too much. Or it is, it's just a little bit awkward. Especially, most likely because save the best for last doesn't reduce the time the stun lasts. Okay. Besides save the best for last, we see Demogorgon has seen that, hey, there was a meg here, so he's going to start moving this way. I have sprint bursts, so what I'm going to do is as soon as he gets a little bit close enough, I start running. So I'm getting some distance because of fixated, and Demogorgon is starting to go towards me, and I start running to get some more distance away. Like I said before, I was over here. I see that he's trying to lunge for me, so I went this way to try and avoid it. Luckily, it was too far out of reach, but I managed to make it into a classroom anyways. Okay, I'm going to say this immediately. I already talked about short loops, or box loops as I like to call them. Midwich is literally chock full of box loops, mainly because the map is a box. But how the loop works is that there's a box here, there's a box here. One side is much larger. Let's say this is the large one, this is the small one. If you're over here, the killer's over here. If they go this way, you go this way. If they go this way, you go this way instead. You're trying to move the opposite direction as them. So that way you keep as much distance as possible. You drop the pallet whenever necessary, but the biggest mistake you could ever make is going down the short side of the box loop. The reasoning for this is that if you go to the small side, the killer can moonwalk and trick you a lot easier. The large side is a little bit more tame. You can get a bit more reliance, pretty much, out of the larger side. The larger side on this box loop is the couches. So as you see, I am just keeping my distance. The smart decision would have been to run this way, but instead I ran to the small side, and because of this I get tripped up, and Demogorgon gets a hit on me. Luckily, we managed to get to a pretty good loop. It's like this, with a wall here. Pretty much you just want to run around the circle area. It's not really a circle, it's more like a really awkward shaped rectangle. But you want to do exactly as the short loop or the box loops as I stated, keeping on the opposite side as much as possible, and just trying to keep your eyes open. So you see I'm standing right here, mainly to try and get the sprint burst or the exhaustion meter down a bit, so I can get sprint burst if necessary. I'm keeping my eyes open for any red stains. And I see Demogorgon, and immediately I know he's going to shred. The biggest reason is his head is starting to change shape, as well as his hands. Meaning I have to run this way, so that way he has to cancel the shred. And you can tell that he's about to use his shred when you hear a hissing sound from him. As well as the fact that his head literally opens up. So we're just keeping our distance. And we hear he was hissing, so I had to drop the pallet immediately. Because there was no other spot for me to go. If I go this way, he's going to just go, okay, I'm gonna shoot this way with my shred. You have to drop the pallet in this situation. There's no way you can really fake it when you're up against a wall, and the only safe option you can go, he can shred towards. So dropping the pallet here was necessary. Which leads to him breaking it. Excuse me. In this loop, I could have played this a little bit better. This is pretty much another box loop, but instead, they're pretty much the exact same shape with a pallet. I could have ran either way and just gotten some time, but because of the situation I was in and the fact I was a bit nervous, I pre-dropped the pallet. Which he ends up breaking, obviously. I run up here, which has two pretty funky loops, but they're not way too strong, so I'm just trying to move somewhere reliable. Such as this room. Like I said, there's the small side, there's the big side, and the pallet is right over here. What you want to do is you want to loop around the large one. You never want to loop around the small one unless you have extra time. So let me give you an example. Let's say you've run around this loop 3 times. The killer is now getting bloodlust, he's getting a little bit faster. If you feel like you have just enough distance to get one more loop out, you then run around the small loop. But if you don't feel like you have enough time, you drop the pallet. The small loop should never be looped around first. It's always the large one you should go around. But with the small loop, if you feel like you can just get one tiny ounce of distance out, just like one more loop, then you can go ahead and use the small loop. Especially if you think that the big one just won't have enough time for you. So I'm running around here, keeping my eye on his red stain. I hear he has his lunge. This is the I'm gonna rewind real quick. I'm keeping close to the wall as much as possible, so that way I get as much distance as I can. And I go a little bit wide here, which could have been a mistake from me. But since I was going around here and was very close to this wall already, since he was lunging for me, I was going to be able to make it past him. If I went just a little bit wider, he could have hit me. But because I was just close enough but not too close, I managed to avoid the lunge. I'm keeping an eye on his red stain, making sure I know where he is. I see that he's moonwalking because his red stain just floated over here. So I'm going the other way. And I dropped the pallet. What I should have done is I should have ran around this way again, because he would have missed in that situation. However, I dropped the pallet and I get the pallets done. In that situation, it's a little bit depressing, but there's not much we could have done there. So we drop the pallet, he gets stunned. And now he's going to waste time breaking it again. And he loses us. We slow vault so he doesn't have way too much information. And we are now out of the chase. Which leads to us being able to get healed. Everyone is healed up, 2 gens are done. In this situation, we want to get more pressure. This is not looking good. and Demogorgon just teleported again. We just want to make sure if we hear any sounds. Now, remember when I said Midwich has very nasty loops sometimes? I'm talking about this type of loop. This is the most annoying palette in Midwich's existence. The reason being, basement is not here. The wall over here is blocked. Meaning the only way to get to the other side of this palette, if it's ever dropped, is you have to kick it. This is a palette that has to be broken by the killer, no matter what. Now, I heard sound effects, meaning that Demogorgon is somewhere around, or it could be because of the portal. However, in this case, we just saw his hand right over here. Okay, in a Swift situation, I would tell my Swift friends, hey yo, I saw a hand right over here. It looks dangerous. I'm gonna run this way, and you should run with me too, so that way none of us get injured. But this is solo queue, and because of that people are a little bit confused. So we run past, he swings for us and he misses. He gets the hit on Elodie, and the hit on Jane. Now 2 people are once again injured. We're just waiting to see if he got any distance away. And we see that Jane has been downed again. You may notice I'm sprinting in this case. Now I'm gonna talk about exhaustion one more time, specifically what people with sprint bursts tend to love doing. And that's 99ing the sprint burst. So the exhaustion meter, it goes like this. It goes like a full circle, like, oh. Alright, you're good to use your exhaustion perk again. But people with exhaustion perks tend to go like this. They're like, alright, we are having the meter. It's almost there, it's almost there. Ah! Right at the tippy top at the 99 percentile. The reasoning for this is that so that way they can conserve the sprint burst. So what happens is, they are busy running around, the killer's chasing after them, and then when it's at 99%, they just walk for a second, and then they can sprint burst away. Many people with sprint burst do this almost constantly. It's a very unique feature that normally only exists on sprint burst. You could do it on a few other perks too, like Dead Hard maybe, but Dead Hard is a bit more niche. You generally just want Dead Hard, you don't want to 99 it. So it's at the 99 and we see Jane's game picked up. There's not much we can do. All we can do is just work on gens and get pressure. That's what we're doing. We're working on a gen and we see that Jane has been hooked and our scratch marks are literally leading us to this gen. Meaning we have to drop down the pits like now, because that Demogorgon's gonna be going right after us. So down the pits we go. We're just walking, just watching. If he comes from the pit, we know to run, and if we see he's at the stairs, we know to run the other way. And we hear Demogorgon use his teleport again, meaning we're just going to walk. And we see that Nancy is in a chase again, which ends very miserably once again. So this tells me immediately that Nancy is our weakest link. So, this is discussed in Dead by Daylight every now and again, where if you're playing killer and you're up against 4 people, if you're chasing someone you realize, oh my goodness, they can outloop me for days, they are so strong, you want to ignore them and then go after the weak link for a chunk of time, just to get a bit of pressure. Because as soon as the weak link is down and hooked, people have to waste their time trying to save the weak link's life. Or not even waste, just try and save their life. This Nancy has been downed once again, showing that she is, in our case, the weak link of the team. So, we are using this time to heal Jane up because she's now on Death Hook. And Nancy is now about to reach onto death. She's about to get hooked for a second time now, too. And we are still at 3 gens. Alright, we are conserving our sprint burst just in case. And we're working on the gen. And Jane is with us to help us finish this gen too. And Elodie just got down too. And they're both downstairs. This means that me or Jane has to save the Nancy. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to guess which one of us have to save the Nancy. The answer is I have to save her. Jane can't do it because although she's healthy, she's at death hook. And since she touched the gen, I know she doesn't have DS. I've only been hooked once, and I am healthy, and I have Sprint Burst online, meaning I have the tools necessary to get to Nancy fast enough to get her off the hook and to help her out, such as tanking a hit since I don't have borrowed time. Elodie can't do it because she is lying on the floor, dead. Or not really dead, but she's close to death. And Nancy can't really unhook herself since she's at stage 2 already. So in this case, we're just gonna keep working on the gen. Once it's finished, I have to go and save the Nancy. Alright, I dropped down the pit, conserving the sprint burst. I know that Demogorgon is somewhere around. He could be in the corner here, so I'm just taking a quick peek at Elodie to see if I can pick her up from the floor. I see that Demogorgon is right on top of Elodie. So in this case, I use my sprint burst to get to Nancy so I can keep as much distance as possible between Demogorgon and myself. And we see immediately that Demogorgon is coming right for us. So in this situation, I don't have BT, Nancy's on death hook, I don't think she has DS, so I have to act as a shield. I have to tank any hits possible for Nancy just to escape. So for a decent chunk of time, you're going to see me running with Nancy just right behind her to keep her safe. And Demogorgon is following with us. Jane is working on the gen, but she knows she has to run now too. Now, in this situation, I see that Nancy is now at a loop, and I'm thinking, okay, Nancy's at a loop now. The two of us can't loop at the exact same spot, meaning I'll leave Nancy alone, so she can loop around here, so that way she's safe. And I'll go and get the save on Elodie. And I see, okay, she's going to this room. Meaning, alright, she's going to be there. Demogorgon used the portal again, meaning we don't know where he is. He could be right on top of us over here. He could be right on top of us up there. He could be right over there. Heck, he could even be on the other side of the map. We just don't know. We go and save the Elodie, and it turns out he's up here. And Nancy is now gone. Luckily, we have only 2 gens left, but this is a very, very dangerous case. We're playing with fire now. We have 2 people, 1 injured, 1 healthy, who are on death hook. I'm the only one who can tank 1 more hook before dying. In this case, I have to be aggressive with generators to get as much pressure as possible to try and get the exit gates open. Or, I keep the killer distracted as long as possible for these 2 to finish it. I don't know where the Jane is, and the Elodie I'm not sure if she's going to self-care in the middle of a corner. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. So we're just busy running, and Nancy is going to die. The Elodie shares the same mindset as me. Okay! I just saw this now. Look over here. You see the sparks? We have sparks flying all the way over here. Now, this is normal. When a killer kicks a generator, most of the time it's just glowing a bit of sparks. Like, oh yeah, that's normal. But normally the sparks are conserved in a small range. This is a very big range, meaning we finally have the full build of Demogorgon. We have a Ruin, Tinkerer, save the best for last, and last but not least, Pop. Pop Goes the Weasel makes it so after you hook a survivor, the next time you kick a gen in 45 seconds, you will regress the gen by an extra percentage. I believe it's by an extra 15%. Like a 15% burst and then it starts regressing. Meaning this is a very, very sweaty Demogorgon player. All he has to do is just replace Save the Best for Last with like Undying, and he has the very powerful killer build that almost every killer loves using nowadays. Regardless, we have to power through this gen and get pressure. Nancy is on Death Hook, and we know he's above us. Excuse me. We have to work on this gen, and we have to get pressure now. Okay, Demogorgon used these portals again, so now we don't know where he is, but we have to keep our eyes open and our ears sharp. We know there's a doorway over here, we know there's a doorway right over here, and we know there is a window right there. So what we need to do is we need to do pretty much a 360 of the room. We want to keep view over here, all the way to over here. Everything outside of this area is nonsense. There's no real reason to look over there unless there's a portal. Now, there we go. Now, let's just get back to the video. My exhaustion is slowly going back down, so that way we can start running. We're just working on generators, trying to get as much pressure as possible as usual. We heard Demogorgon swing, so he could be in chase with someone. Keeping our eyes open for anywhere he could be. And we just heard him. And because I heard that, I knew that I had to begin running. And it's because I have Sprint Burst that this happens. He swings and he misses because I managed to make just enough distance they couldn't catch me. So let's play through this. Okay. Now immediately... let me pause. There we go. This is the second most obnoxious loop in Midwich. I told you before that there are very nasty loops on Midwich Elementary. This is one of the most... one of the most annoying too. Other than the just wall pallets and there's no way to get through it. This one is like, it's not basement, it's like killer hatch. Or not hatch, Killer shack, there we go. I'm forgetting stuff now. So we have like a room here. We have a doorway here, we have a doorway here for the hallway. We have a small doorway here with a wall, there's a pallet right over here. And there's no way out else through this room except through these two doors. There's a wall over here. When you are doing this loop, what you want to do is you want to run through here and run this way. If you don't see the red stain over here, you want to run to the middle of the room, just so that way you get as much distance from the killer as possible, so you can go like, okay, if he's going through here, I just run through here. And if he's going through here, I just run through here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping tight to the loop as possible, trying not to get stuck. I ran past so I could get just a bit of extra distance. He's preparing a shred, and I now see that he started lunging right over here, and he's going to get the hits right away. Not much we could have done there. Regardless, we have to keep on doing a loop. Alright, he's constantly chasing us. Now, this loop is very awkward. It's not very good. It's just box, box, with a window in the middle. What you want to do is, if you're over here and the killer's over here, like I already stated, if he goes this way, you go that way. And if he goes this way, you go this way. This very much focuses on short loops where you're just like, you want to keep your eyes on the killer, their red stain, and you want to keep dancing with them just to make sure you get pressure. So for example, you can see a lot of times where the killer changes movement, and I follow up with it. So over here, I see he goes the other way, so I go the other way too. I see he goes again the other way, so I go the other way again. I see he's trying to go the other way, and I follow with. It's like a dance. You keep doing this over and over again. And he's getting bloodlust, me he's getting move speed, so I have to vault this. I wouldn't have made it by any other way, and sadly he gets the hit. Because I was too close to the window. When you're at a window, you need at least 1.5 steps. There we go. 1.5 steps to get a fast vault. So if I was wanting to fast vault this, I had to move just a little bit more like this, and then turn that way. But in the end, he would have gone me either way. So there's not much I could have done there. We see that Jane is busy destroying a portal up there, and Elodie's working on another gen. Excuse me. Nothing much we can say over here. I'm just going to... We see he's going by where the chain's going. I'm gonna skip by. Not that far. Okay, here we go. Just by a little bit. Elodie saves us and we see that she doesn't have B2. What we want to do in this case is we saw, okay, Demogorgon is over here. He's probably on this side of the map. So I'm gonna use Sprint Burst, run this way, and get to the other side of the map, and work on any gens that I find there. And Jane gets injured from the Demogorgon, and we're just running looking for gens, just to help get pressure. We see that there's a gen around here, but we also notice that it's near a portal. Jane just got downed. What we want to do in this case is break the portal. It's way too close to the gen, so he can sense us if he uses his shred. So we have to break the portal so he doesn't know our location. So he can't teleport to us. Another thing I forgot to mention is when you are on top of the portal, you are oblivious too. So what Demogorgons tend to do is they place portals on top of generators, so that way you have to break it, or if you're working on the generator on top of the portal, you won't be able to see their red stain. Alright, we managed to break the portal, and the generator just procced because of Elodie. We have adrenaline, meaning what adrenaline does is that your health state goes up by +1 if you are injured or you're in the dying state. And you gain a sprint burst-like movement speed for 4 seconds. I didn't realize this for 2 seconds, so I didn't make much use of adrenaline, but I did end up making just enough with it to get enough distance away from Demo. And also, because we know he has pop, we don't have to worry about NOED. We're working on the generator, or the exit gate, I mean, and we hear that Demogorgon is nearby. We let go and start crouching, because there's not much we can do here. We can go running to the lounge over there, but there's no pallets there and the door's open already. And Demogorgon is coming from this way, so all we can really hope for is sneaking by. Hoping, you know, Demogorgon doesn't see us. We only worked on the exit gate for literally 2 seconds, so there's no lights. So we're just sneaking by, hoping he doesn't hear us. Because it happened before with the totem. Alright, and we see he's crouching down to place a portal, and he teleports away. Meaning we can work on this exit gate and get to 99. And we see that he's now on top of Elodie. The thought process I have here is, okay, I will go look for Elodie and try and help her out. But since Elodie is nowhere nearby, there's not much we can really do. So going by a little bit, I broke the portal over there. Elodie ends up getting downed, and I decide there's not much else I can do. She's already Death Hook. I'm Death Hook. I should just leave. And because of that, the game ends with Elodie sadly dying. Alright. Skipping by, we see everything already. We see he had Tinkerer, we see Save the Best for Last, we see Pop, and we see Ruin. And we also see he had Mary's Letter, which is an offering to make it so we go to Midwich. So now we know, okay, Midwich wasn't just random, he wanted us to go there. So it was to his benefit. And we also see the 2 iridescent add-ons. That's all I have to really say about this video. If you have any questions, leave in the comments so I can explain a little bit more. I hope you found the information I provided to be very beneficial, especially if you ever face a Demogorgon, or if you ever have to think about what perks the killer has, what thought process I use to explain it. And that's all I really have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck in your games, everybody.